If you struggle with letting go and surrendering in life, then this video is especially for you. If you're here for the first time, my name is Kiran. I'm an author and I write about mindfulness, emotional resilience, and wellness. So I'll start with this. Sometime back, I was based out of New York City and I worked in IT. And around that time, I joined a meditation school near Seattle, Washington. And in the process of being in school, I made quite a few friends. Now, meeting these group of people felt like coming home. It felt right. And it felt like finding my soul family. And so it was no surprise when my heart said to me one day, wouldn't it be nice to live in Washington? And that's when I thought that, I would make a move from New York to Seattle, Washington. So my plan was to first get a job offer and then make this cross-country move. And so I set out to work. I sent out hundreds of resumes, reached out to people. I also did what any law of attraction student would do, which is set intentions. I prayed. I pretty much did everything that I knew. And yet, nothing really materialized. As in, I got few offers here and there, but they were either from companies that weren't resonating with me, or the job profile was not of my liking. Now 2 years went by and all I got from the universe was crickets. Now by the end of 2 years, I was also quite exhausted, both mentally and emotionally. And I remember, saying to myself that perhaps it might be a better idea to let go of this dream, that most importantly, I need to make peace with where I am in this moment and not fight it. And I kid you not, the moment I let go, the moment I surrendered, the moment I said, God, you are in charge, a job offer came along and I eventually moved cross country from New York to Seattle, Washington. But back then I didn't know that I was missing a key ingredient in this whole manifestation process, and that was surrender. Because had I known how to surrender, I would have trusted in divine timing. I would have quite honestly enjoyed my time in New York City while I lived there. And most importantly, I would have trusted my soul a lot more than my ego mind. So until this experience, I never thought much about surrender. In fact, I used to look down upon it, thinking it was a weakness, because in my mind, surrender meant giving up on your dreams, and that is not what I stood for. But this whole experience of manifesting this job, it revealed a major flaw in my mindset, and that was my inability to surrender. And this was something I really wanted to understand because I wanted to have a better experience in my next manifestation process. And like always, I turned to books. But despite reading many books on the topic, the meaning of surrender still evaded me. So how did I learn to surrender and let go? One thing I have noticed in my experience is that when books don't have the answers that I am looking for, I then tune into and listen to the wisdom and the intelligence of my body, and that's exactly what I did. So I started living my life as a full body experience. And this is something I also mention in my book. And what I mean by a full body experience is living life that aligns with both your head and your heart. Like a lot of times, people would ask, hey, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? Can you go here? Can you go there? And when I would get these requests, what I started doing, I would tune into my heart, into my head, and I would ask them, hey, is this a yes or a no? And only when I got a yes from both of them would I move forward. And I really took this concept of living life as a full body experience to my heart. And surprisingly, what I noticed was that in general, things worked out a lot more for me. So this was my cue that I was onto something here and I needed to keep doing it. The next thing I did was that I started looking at my life's experiences from 30,000 feet. What I mean by that is that, when you are that far removed from your life, from your day-to-day activities, you can, at least to some degree, see where and how the energy is flowing in your life. Like you can see what doors are opening up naturally in your life and which ones are closing. Like a few years ago, I remember a time when I was moving apartments every few months, and this was very unlike me. And what I noticed was that those apartments were becoming progressively smaller. At first, I couldn't understand why, but as I looked at this experience from 30,000 feet, I knew in my heart that this was a sign from the universe that I needed to move out of the city that I was living in. And interestingly enough, this was also the message that my intuition had been giving me for the past couple of months. And as you start to pay attention to these cues, what you will notice is that the universe is always communicating to you through signs, through symbols, and you just need to pay attention. The other thing I did that helped me let go and surrender is becoming okay with not getting what I wanted. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but the point is, can you be okay? Can you be happy not getting that one thing that you so desperately want in your life? In other words, are you willing to be detached from the outcome? Many times they say miracles happen when you least expect them. And recently, I came across a video by a famous beauty blogger, and her name is Raw Christie, and she shared how she conceived after 15 years of infertility. And I'll put a link to her video in the description below. In this video, Christie shared that prior to her conceiving, she had made peace with the fact that she was not going to be a mom in this life. And rather than this reality dictate her life, make her feel miserable, she decided that she was going to be happy, that she was going to live her best life. And in the process, the miracle manifested itself. Another key element which is integral to letting go, to surrendering, and even to the manifestation process is keeping a flexible mind. One of my teachers often joked saying that as humans, when we want to attract something in our life, we just become fixated with it. Like we map out all the details of how it's going to manifest, to the extent thinking what wrapping paper the universe would use to send this gift. And my teacher said, well, what if the universe decided to choose a different wrapping paper? If you were so fixated for the events to look a certain way, you won't even recognize when your gift would arrive. Now, as I started to let go and surrender in my day-to-day life, what I learned was that surrender is allowing things to be how they are in this moment and not fighting them, kind of like going with the flow. Many times people think that surrender is about giving up, and I was one of those people, and I'm also here to tell you it is anything but giving up. Instead, what surrender means, it means being in the now moment. And from that surrendered state, taking actions. And then releasing your desires, your dreams, your hopes to the universe. Now, as a side note, I do want to take a moment and talk about the law of attraction and a few mistakes I made for the longest time. In the law of attraction, we are taught to focus on the outcome. But in retrospect, going back to the example that I shared with you, this in a way is controlling and manipulating energy because you want the events to look a certain way. And in applying the law of attraction this way, it quite honestly drained me because I was so fixated with how I wanted the events to look that I was blinded to all the other opportunities in this now moment. And through my experiences, what I found was that perhaps a better way is to have preferences and not attachments. Like if I was manifesting a move to Washington today, the first thing that I would tell myself that it is my preference to move to Washington and not my attachment. And I know in just saying these words to my mind is automatically relaxed. I can ease in, I can relax, and from that relaxed state, most importantly, I would take actions. And finally, I will leave you with this. As you start practicing surrender in your day-to-day life, you will feel much less tension, much less anxiety, and much less exhaustion. And most importantly, as you learn to surrender to your soul, to your life's plan, you will reach your highest destiny potential in this life. And perhaps it might be much more grander than you could have ever imagined. That's all I have to share. Thank you.